uh, the goals for today are twofold. One is to spend some time just showcasing some new things that are in Node, and also spending some time talking about things that we as a development team are observing related to Node's performance and the behavior of the public testnet. So I wanted just to make sure to take some time to share what we're seeing. Also wanted to make sure to take some time to hear what you're seeing, and if you have any questions or observations to share, really want to get those. And then also to talk a little bit about next steps. It's been a bit of a lull here for us as node testers as we have waited for some changes to come into releases, and I want to give a recap of what's coming and some thoughts on how we as a testing community can help support and evaluate those new things as they come into the software. So the first thing I want to do is talk a little bit about if you were running a node and running RNode 9.3, which was the most previous release, and you have recently started to run node 9.4, one of the first things you should notice is how quiet the logs are. And quiet here means you're just not seeing as many messages related to communications. And we're not swallowing errors, but we're swallowing a lot of the info and warns that were happening beforehand related to peering and communications between nodes, which as an end user makes it's a little bit easier to parse what I'm seeing in the console. I'm also aware, though, of a potential risk that if you had set up any type of filtering to look at logs, that this might impact you. And I haven't heard any feedback about that yet. But if you have set up tools in the past and are now missing logs that you thought you could rely on, very much would like to hear that and take that back to the team. So let me share my screen. We do still have a bit of a bug. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to reproduce it, and if I can't reproduce it, I will absolutely show you what we're observing. Let's see. So give me just a moment. And okay, and let me make this bigger. All right, so I'm going to join the public testnet. We are still using the unmodified RSpace, and so if you're joining the testnet, just to call out, you still need to specify the store type mixed and the map size in your run command. This will help support you as we work towards completing the update of RSpace, and I'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. So here is Node getting ready to get started, and let's see what happens today. So I should also call out, I'm starting from I do have a stored sense of the state in this version, so I don't have to request the approved block, and you can see that here, it found it in storage from the last time I ran. And you can see that with the Genesis block that I had in storage, it transitioned to the approved block receive handler state, which in other words is Casper has started and now can function in Node. And now we can see the communications activities where Node now not only has started up, this is now my node, but it's also connecting to Bootstrap and starting its work to find peers. And then you can also see as it finds peers, they are requesting blocks that they don't have, that my node clearly does. So the response sent indicates that I had that block. So this is all very good and exactly what we would expect. But that doesn't always happen. So let's see, number one, if we can reproduce it here. And if not, I can show you a log from where it didn't go well. So right now I'm clearing my data directory. And let's restart. So now, having cleared the data directory, of course, I don't have the saved state, which means I also don't have the saved Genesis block. So the part, what should happen here is a request from Bootstrap for the approved block. And so you can see the approved block was not found in storage. You can see that we are starting and with a connection attempt to Bootstrap. Pavel, are you excited as I am?
I guess. I'm a bit disappointed because the changes that I did recently are not yet in.
The 3250 changes?
Yeah, that's why I'm here. I was hoping to see them in action.
Pavel, do you know what's the address to get node version and number of peers? It's 40403/.
Let me look it up. Give me a second.
Sorry, guys, I failed to continue to scroll the screen. So here we can see my node started. That's my node's address. And we've added new logs. So if you're using 9.4, we've added improved logging messages for Casper. And you can now see that this node successfully sent the request for the approved block to the Bootstrap node. And so far, we don't have any indication that that went sideways. So at this point, you just wait to see if the Bootstrap sends you the Genesis block.
So I got, I don't know if I have the right, right Bootstrap here. I mean, I have some peers, but failed to send approved block request.
Yes, yes, you got it. That's fantastic, Jim. I'm excited. Yeah, that's what I was trying to reproduce, and I didn't do it, but you did.
Kelly, I've never seen anybody excited that much for a bug. Like, yeah.
Our job is bugs. So yeah, so what Jim found, and I can show you here on a log that I have from the other day. So, you know, imagine, again, you started a node from scratch, meaning that you do not have a sense of the state or the Genesis block. And, you know, and that's what's happening here on the left-hand side of my screen. The approved block wasn't in the block store, attempted to connect to the Bootstrap node. And then as I was connecting, I was unable to send the approved block request. So of course, now the Bootstrap has no idea that I wanted the Genesis block. And now we have a problem. And so there is work in place and in progress to resolve this. And Pavel, should we also talk about the challenges of just networking and communications?
Yeah, sure.
So okay, go ahead.
Oh yeah, so even though we use TCP, which kind of gives us the guarantee. The underlying infrastructure gives the guarantees that that the message was received by the other party. We still don't get guarantees that the message was properly consumed. And in that particular case, when we send bigger chunks of data, and Genesis block is definitely a big chunk of data, we send that in a streaming fashion. And the way we do it is that whenever you try to send something big, it's being queued on the file system, so that we try to keep as small as memory footprint as possible, so that information about, hey, I want to send this particular thing over the network is being queued in the memory, but the thing itself is being stored on the file system. So then, when eventually a consumer of that queue receives that message like, hey, this node tries to send this particular message that is being stored in that file system, this sending thing might fail. And if it does, we try to send it. However, you don't get the 100% guarantee that it's going to be sent, because it's a distributed system. Things might get partitioned, nodes can get offline. The other party might be very busy with work, might be doing garbage collection for what it takes. So, and that's what I described right now are the difficulties, the typical things that happens on the lower level of communication layer. However, the layers above it, like Casper, should be aware of that and compensate for that. And we not necessarily always do that. The Casper protocol, one of the things that will be changing in Casper protocol this week and next week, but essentially during the sprint, is to think about that. So in cases like here, for example, when we instantiate our node and we send the request for last approved block, if we don't get it in a particular period of time, we should just request it one more time. It's putting some effort on the bandwidth, but it's not really that challenging. And there are, I guess, 2 or 3 different places where issues like that may exist. We've identified them 2 days ago, and we're going to work on that. Majority of that stuff is related to Genesis ceremony, because when Casper is, like when the network is already operating, all other communications are well designed, and they can handle situations when messages get dropped. It's the Genesis ceremony that needs a little bit of love and a little bit of taking care of, which I'm hoping to do that this sprint. If there's anything, Kelly, you want to add, you're welcome.
No, that's excellent. Thank you so much. Philip has a question in the chat. Are you able to see that, Pavel?
Was I muted?
Yes.
Right.
Sorry, I couldn't see the video.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that yes, there's nothing stopping us doing that. We had some internal discussions about it. It's just how things were designed from the beginning, and nobody really thought about it before. This is how the protocol was designed previously. But I guess nothing is stopping us to, if we want to, we can extend that to bootstrap from different nodes. I would say the only
and in fact, you can do that. You can bootstrap from any node.
Well, you can bootstrap from any node, but you identify a particular node. That's right. The question would be, why wouldn't just add few nodes? From starters. I know one in China, one in US.
Mm-hmm.
Why not add both? The only concern that I see, and I don't have to really think about it, is how that would work with the Genesis ceremony itself. Because during the Genesis ceremony, one particular node acts as a ceremony master, acts as a node that accumulates validation from all the Genesis validators, validates the signatures, creates the final Genesis block, and broadcasts that Genesis block to everybody who's interested. So that the nature of that protocol requires a single ceremony master. So I would say, like, we would then have to think about, like, how would that work if we allowed more than one node. I'm not saying it's not doable. I'm just saying I haven't thought this through. So that would be like one obstacle too. Well, you proposed that back in September. I understand, but I don't think we spoke before, right?
It doesn't seem like that's an essential requirement at this point, although maybe for future releases after mainnet, it would be.
For sure, and that's where we landed up. We've been Phil has been participating in conversations about validator incentives. And Phil, I'm speaking on your behalf because I anticipate that you're muted. But that one of the things that we discussed particularly about this last or the week before last is that for the Mercury mainnet launch, having a truly decentralized Genesis ceremony is of a lower priority, given that it is likely to be co-op run validators that are launching that network at Mercury mainnet. So yes, very much noted and agreed in general by the team that that's taking a decentralized approach to a Genesis ceremony is the better option, and it's not the option that we can afford in this moment. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to talk about related to 9.4. Oh, right. Tomasz, can I put you on the spot to talk a little bit about what we observed I guess it was yesterday, maybe the day before, related to the JVM?
Oh, yes. So it happens that, let me find out my words. Yeah. It happens sometimes that JVM memory grows to 16 gigabytes, and the kernel out of memory killer just decides to kill the process because it's putting the pressure on the system. And so far, I had thought that it's eaten by some native library, because whenever I try to diagnose the memory usage of a JVM, it only uses 13 gigabytes. And now I finally got the memory usage from the system that was under pressure, and it seems that it's all used by JVM. So on this one of testnet, I limited the heap size to 8 gigabytes. It actually never grows in more than 4 gigabytes. So RNode is actually not using that much memory, but the other regions of memory of JVM, for example, glass storage and whatnot, I don't really understand that much yet. These all other chunks add up to the remaining 8 gigabytes. So hopefully now we will see if some other JVM memory chunk grows too much, and if not, then problem solved. So I will just need to learn about the memory management of JVM a little bit more. Then I will be able to speak more confidently about this.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And then I guess the other thing I wanted to call out, with the exception of this, the validators have been running fairly alert-free. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree. I guess it's because NotZipper wasn't doing his thing.
We can always tell when NotZipper is running his.
So should we do the restart now?
Yeah. Can you Can you talk about what you're doing and why?
Yeah, so I noticed that we are using RDoctor, but we have some other ways to gather logs from testnet nodes, and I just noticed that um, it failed to process some message. There's some bug, and it shouldn't really block the nodes. It was designed that if you cannot connect to the log collection backend, it just drops the messages and lets the node run. But it can happen if there is a bug that the standard output and standard error will be blocked by the RNode because it consumes these streams. So I would just like to run it without it, and hopefully it will not interfere with the nodes.
Cool, thank you.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
should I proceed?
Yep, please.
Okay.
So again, if you guys are, it's a soft restart, so it won't lose state. And if you're currently running a node, you might observe peer drops, and then you'll observe those peers coming back as they restart. The other thing I wanted to make sure that we talk about is what's coming. Again, you know, we've kind of had a bit of a lull in this space related to things to test and try and do. And there are some things coming down the pike that I think are going to be interesting and useful for this particular group to play with. A key one of those is the renovation of our space. And so where we are with that today, Wukash is currently testing the new R space in our performance test harness and in the development test network. And we are taking a look and making sure it's behaving properly. And with the goal of by the end of this week being hopefully feeling confident and not observing any big bugs so that we can release 9.5 next week. That would include the new R space. That's going to be an important part of building, you know, longer DAGs and using our nodes in that way. So really looking forward to that. The other thing that we are closing in on is the full completion of the effort in bridging cost accounting, where bridging cost accounting means cost accounting wallets and the proof of stake contract are all updated and able to show the utility use of the token on the RChain platform. We have a couple guys working on that this week. The goal is to get that work completed by the end of this sprint. So then, you know, we would look at the week of May 27th, releasing 9.6. That would include that full complement of cost accounting. What else? We also have a variety of node improvements coming down the pike, and largely improvements related to your feedback. So we will have a 9.5, the ability to generate public-private key sets via the command line. That PR went in yesterday. And I forget what else Daniel picked up. But Daniel is working on what we call, you know, UX improvements for node operators. So some nice things coming your way in release 9.5 and 9.6. We're working, Pavel has work that's in dev right now that will improve our Genesis ceremony and transitions of nodes and comms within Casper and changes to the Casper engine in general. That will be in 9.5. Trying to think if there's anything else that would be.
I guess it's worth noticing that that kind of improves the Genesis ceremony and makes it twice as fast as it used to be.
Yeah, that was a big win. It was a 10-minute change in that test.
Oh, the test used to take 15 minutes and
Yeah.
now it takes 10 minutes, so it's fine.
That was exciting.
Drop. Yeah.
Tomasz, when you're running the test, you're using from dev, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I think those are kind of the big chunks that are going to impact node operators and testnet users in the next several weeks. So again, looking to release 9.5 next week, followed by 9.6 the week of May 27th. Are there any questions about really anything, your use of nodes or the testnet or what's coming
I have a question about the logs that you mentioned at the beginning.
Okay.
I'm using logs for Visual Studio Code plugin to parse errors and also to recognize when the node is started. So now I see that this message that you mentioned, making a transition to approved block receipt handler state, is it the same for the latest version? I mean, on the dev branch, because I'm seeing making a transition to running state.
Oh, Pavel, are those the same? Or run states that we introduced?
I'm looking. Sorry, I was looking for the unmute button. Yes, one of the things that I did during that refactoring of Casper protocol was just giving it a little bit more meaningful names to the states that Casper goes through. So approved block, state handler, something, whatever, and a few other keywords was completely meaningless for me. But basically that state means that the node has Casper instantiated and it's running, and that's the final state within the transition of so the Casper protocol goes through like different state transitions, and that's the final state. That's the running state. That's why I called it running, and not approved block state handler or something. So you will
totally makes sense.
You will see renames appearing, and you will also soon see a better understanding in logs of the transition that is happening when the node instantiates itself.
Okay, cool.
But
and I need this message to. I want to know when node is in a state that I can evaluate the code. And maybe this is like too late, right? To waiting for Casper.
No,
maybe I can.
No, you will have to, in order to evaluate code, you need to have Casper. Do you?
Okay.
Is that right?
I guess so, but definitely when you have that running state, that's safe to say that you can run your code.
Okay, thanks. And is there any changes on log messages? Maybe because I'm parsing log error messaging from the logs.
There was one additional change in logs. It's actually a shift of a letter, and I think some typos. So you might, I guess, but you're running the dev branch, right? So you're running the up-to-date version. So what you're running right now is the current state.
Okay, thanks.
Hey Kelly, I had a question about propose, and I think you or someone mentioned that it's going to come off of the external gRPC port and go to the internal one. Is that right?
Correct.
And when will that happen?
When will that happen, Pavel? I'm teasing. I'm teasing him. He's promised me for. I'm sorry. It's on the backlog right now for this sprint.
Okay, so possibly in a week for the next testnet deployment. As soon as that, and then so from a DApp perspective, what I've been doing on the wallet is I do currently a deploy, a propose, and then a listen, and I do that all the time. So will I not do the propose, and then what's kind of the expected protocol from a when to listen perspective?
So can I ask that?
Hold on, let me make sure that we're clear. You're doing this on testnet, is that correct?
Well, I've been running a local node. I'm on 094 now, just locally disconnected, and but I'm used to doing the propose because that's what I used to have to do. So do I no longer have to do that after this change comes in? And then how long from a DApp perspective should I wait before listening on that name? How will I know when to listen on the name? Do I have to pull it?
So two things to that. So two like separate things. First of all, right now, from your perspective, nothing is like you're running your local node, nothing will change. So let me unwrap that really quickly. The node itself exposes two two external APIs. Two APIs. One which we call external, one which we call internal.
Yeah.
They are exactly the same mechanism. The idea here is that they are being exposed on different ports. So you, as an administrator, may configure IP tables and say, like, this port, the internal one, is not visible to outside world. The
Right.
external one I want to expose because I want people to deploy data to my node. So that's what is happening right now. The only difference is that we are moving a single service proposed from that API, from the external one that used to be the one that to be exposed, to the internal one. Now, why I'm saying that most likely nothing will change from the user perspective as it is right now, because most likely what you do when you propose, you call RNode propose, right? That's basically what you do. And so that we've built a thin client. Just give me a second. We've built a thin client that you call. That's the RNode propose. That's a thin Scala client that calls the service for you and does the work for you. You don't call API on your own. That's why, from your perspective, nothing is changing, because that thin client will just start calling the service on different port, and that's what it is. Now, regarding to what you because you were asking whether this works right now, like the node will be proposing on its own. That's not what this change is about. However, we are considering this as a future improvement, that at some point you as a validator might have an option to propose at a given time, but it's most likely the way you're gonna interact with node will be, you will instantiate it, and within the configuration you will say, I want to propose every n deploys or every n seconds or whatever metric or configuration we'll think of. But as it is for now, it's just the matter of where the service is being exposed, and as from the dev perspective, nothing is changing.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm not asking from a validator perspective. So your first, the first part of your response was about the command line interaction. I'm talking about from the gRPC interaction from a dApp developer's perspective. It sounds like it'll be on a different gRPC port, and so then do I still need to deal with that from a dApp perspective, or or can I just expect that the testnet, the proposes, will just happen periodically?
Yeah, but right now on testnet, and Tomasz, I think this is correct, where it's between 30 and 90 seconds for proposed. I think that's correct, Ed. Those validators are proposing quite quickly. And
Well, yeah.
well, or not? Is that not quickly from your perspective?
Well, not from a user experience perspective to you know, send a transfer and then wait 90 seconds to get a confirmation. But yeah, and then move if it's not, you know, automatic and frequent, then I may have to deal with the proposes. Currently, what the Wallet app is doing is, you know, deploy, then a propose, and it's waiting for the response from the proposed before it does the listen. So I may need to change that approach, and I just want to know when.
Sure. Well, when for sure, and thank you. I'll make sure to be very loud when it happens, but it would be 9.5 or 9.6. So when
is there a reason that has to be done soon? Can it be delayed?
That's a good question.
Or can it be exposed on both internal and external ports for a time being?
The reason we're doing it is to start to shift the behavior, because that's really not how it's going to work.
Yeah. No, I understand. Just you know, every little change is delaying the getting this web wallet in the hands of a lot of people, and that will help accelerate, the momentum of the project. So that's the other consideration.
And just thinking through, is there another option we can enable when we do it that will allow your workflow to continue without interruption?
Yeah, that was part of my question, that if the proposes automatically happen and I just need to wait, 10 seconds or 30 seconds before I do the listen for data at name, that's workable. But if I don't know how long to wait, then that's, or if I have to talk to another port, it's just additional work that I'd rather not do, at least at this time. So we can take this offline, Chris or Kelly or Pavel, but I just wanted to kind of understand the upcoming change.
Okay. No, thank you for that.
Cool. And then another question I had is, are all of the testnet nodes up, node 0, node 1, and does it go to 8, or I forget how many there are? And does it matter which ones I hit?
No, they're all validators.
Okay, and they're generally up unless they're temporarily reset or something like that. But they're
Yeah, I would say their uptime is quite good.
awesome.
Something to consider. Node 0 is the advertised bootstrap. Of course,
Yeah.
bootstrap to any of them, but because Node 0 is the advertised bootstrap, it tends to be it gets busier than some of the others.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Any other questions, comments, observations?
I would just mention that one of the priorities that has been expressed for the app developers group, I guess I had introduced it, was maintaining the RChain API JavaScript library. So I guess we need to know what changes are going to affect us there in the same way. If someone, I guess, we're considering that maybe Chris could help guide on that. I don't know if he's thought about that.
Yeah, in fact, I'll ticket it, Jim, so that we know what changes need to be made to it. And if Dan can't do it, I might be able to actually just do it myself.
Cool. We want, the RChain API robot interface is currently broken.
Do you know why?
Well, because well, it's not clear. It's no, it was written for an older version of RChain API, so it needs to be redone. Hopefully, we'll find somebody who will find energy to help. It might be a good proof of concept of the API as well. I don't know. What was my point? Yeah, currently robot uses a command interface to command line interface invoked from the JavaScript.
Do you know when it broke, Jim?
I'm sorry?
When did it break? What release?
Oh, way back when.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was definitely last year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's been a lot of changes then.
Wow. Okay.
So the whole security, cryptography, whatever, all that in the economics are missing. So yeah, it would be good if we could do that. You know, I'm also looking at the JSON library that libraries that convert between JSON and gRPC, and thinking about a GraphQL proxy to help application developers and handle caching. So depending on what engagement we get, anyone that can help guide a app developer session, which are Tuesdays at 4 p.m., would be greatly appreciated. And you know, if there's something to show or whatever, and maybe Chris can help us get guides for that process.
Thanks for that, Jim. And Jim, are you guys still doing your rolling hours in 15 minutes?
Yes.
Excellent. Did you guys see the V1.1 for the rolling spec that Greg published last week?
I didn't get a link to it. I saw it live.
Okay.
I don't think I got a link to it.
Yeah, I saw it. It looked pretty good.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, very, very nice.
I'll drop the link in here for those who might not have seen it. This was a big part of the conversation in our dev retreat last week. So Greg came with some ideas, and Artur also came with some ideas, and all of them are very excited to bring these into Rollang after we complete the Mercury release. So these are things that would come after the Mercury release. Any other questions, thoughts, feedback?
May I ask about a subscription mechanism that for listening for name, or listening for private name?